Oh. Isn't it the best feeling when you finally get some sleep after days of, well, you know, not actually getting any sleep? It's been wild. If you've been following the channel, you know that I've been Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, and I've just spent 6 months in Japan. And that's what I want to talk about, actually. I want to talk about Japan. I spent 6 months traveling across Japan, and I hit hundreds of hard-offs. And I'm talking, here's a photo of me in the southern hard-off in Okinawa. Here's a photo of me in the most northern hard-off in Hokkaido. And do you think I covered everything in between? You better believe I did. The most remote hard-off, maybe. It's definitely one of the most northern. From the long-ending, chemical-inducing plume towers in Hokkaido, the factory towers. The air tastes of lead. Down to having a brown bear scare in Sendai when I was walking through some woods late at night to try and get to a hard-off. I know, it's stupid, I'm stupid, but you can learn from my mistakes. I did 6 months traveling there, and I built up a lot of experience. And I think that it might be a good idea to share some of that experience with you, because I didn't really document too much of it. The hard-off was kind of a sub-quest that became a main quest. Let's start with the basics, okay? So the basics are, what is a hard-off? If you don't live in America or Japan, you've probably never heard of a hard-off, but hard-offs aren't just hard-offs. You may have heard of hard-off, but there's more than just a hard-off. So for example, there is hard-off, which is secondhand reuse chain, where you can go in and buy secondhand hardware for good prices, and that's hard-off. But there's also BOOKOFF, which is it's a place where you can buy secondhand books as well as CDs and DVDs. And then there's Offhouse, which is their like homeware chain, which does, you know, sofas and clothing and all sorts of things that you would have in your house. And then after Offhouse is a thing called HOBBYOFF. And HOBBYOFF is like a place where you can find toys and games and Pokemon cards and all those sort of things. And it's pretty cool too. And then there's GarageOff. Yeah, that's right. For second-hand car parts. I don't know how, depending on the car part, I don't know how well I would be willing to use. Oh, look, second-hand tires that are thoroughly worn. No, it doesn't have tires, but it's just the concept is a bit more stranger to me. But yeah, so you got the hard-off, you got BOOKOFF, you got Offhouse, you got GarageOff, you got HOBBYOFF, and all of these franchises, they're all part and parcel of essentially the same thing, second-hand goods. So what should you go for? You might immediately think to yourself, Ben, that's obvious. I'm just going to go to hard-off. It's hardware, it has games, and it has consoles. And that is true. It does have those things, and it is probably the first port of call you want to go for if you want those items. However, there's a caveat, and that is that a lot of people seem to sleep on BOOKOFF because, you know, books in its title and CDs and DVDs. And I will admit, I was exactly the same before I got educated by James at Back a Binge, who you can see here, hunting for bargains when we met up in Tokyo. You bargain hunting, James?
I am. I'm looking at a camera pen.
Oh, nice.
Is it a pen? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's a camera pen.
Yeah.
Very low quality camera pen, I probably imagine. Or, if you prefer, you can get a DVD player remote for the PlayStation 2, which was in here somewhere. It'd be very interesting to show you, but now I've lost it, so more for me.
And he would point out to me that BOOKOFF actually has a lot of other products, including games. In fact, I would say BOOKOFF is probably the best place to go to for DS, 3DS, and Wii games. Those three specifically. If you want those games, I would say BOOKOFF is actually more eclectic, has a bigger stock of those things than a hard-off would. Now, there's also HOBBYOFF, and you're thinking, well, you know, I want to play games. I don't really care about models and trading cards. And that's fair, but oftentimes people put games in hobby-offs too. So if you go into a hobby-off, you might be surprised as to what you can find. I've found a few gems in there myself. So I guess like the rule of thumb here is book-offs, hobby-offs, hard-offs, those three are pretty good for that kind of, you know, adventure retro game hunting. Now, there's another one that I haven't mentioned called BOOKOFF Super Bazaar. This is kind of like a special version of BOOKOFF, and it tends to have a wider stock of items, and on top of that, it tends to have higher quality items. Now, the prices are slightly higher. We're still not talking anything near like Trader or Super Potato or any of those places. Those places are significantly more expensive, and I'll get onto that later as to why that is. But most people, I would say it's a really good idea to check out the BOOKOFF Supers. They have other products too. Sometimes you go into a BOOKOFF Super and you see an entire like glass cabinet full of Louis Vuitton bags, or if you're really into Nike shoes and trainers and you want to get like some Jordans, like the Off House and the BOOKOFFs are also weirdly places that you can find trainers, especially vintage ones. Now that I've laid out to you what sort of places you want to be going for, I'm going to cover a little bit of a nuance with HARDOFF, because all the other ones are kind of the same thing. So with BOOKOFF, with HOBBYOFF, with Off House and with GarageOff, they're all just multiple rows of shelves, and within those shelves you can find the items that you're looking for, right? With HARDOFF, you get a section called junk, and it's usually a bunch of blue plastic bins, and I'll have a video now on the screen showing you what they look like. And these bins have junk items in them. Now, junk does not necessarily mean not working or non-functional. Junk often means unboxed or often means untested. So just because a game is untested, especially if you're talking about Game Boy games, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. For a Game Boy game to not work, a few things kind of have to go wrong, and it's usually the contacts on the inside of the cartridge. I bought games from the junk section. You take the hit, you're like, oh, it's 100 yen. It's basically nothing to get this game, and if it works with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol or something inside the contacts, sometimes you don't even need to do that, and it's fine. It's just that they get so much stuff that they don't always have time to test things, and they want to sell things and make money still because they're a business. Why do I go to the junk section? It's not so much for the games. I go there for things like, I actually have one near me. I go there for things like DS cases and Game Boy cases. See this one here, this oh, my filter is going crazy. This one here is a Nintendo DS Pokemon Platinum case. Now, as you can see, it's not mint. It has like some wear on the Nintendo DS text here and on the text down here, but it's still really nice. And this cost me a whopping 50 yen, which is it's like £1 or something. And I got other cool things like this. So I got a I don't have a hand, but I got a Game Boy Color original carry case, mint, in its sealed bag still, and it cost me like 200 yen, which is nothing. So it's worth checking out those junk sections for things like cartridge holders, accessories. I think that, like, weirdly you get a lot of accessories in them that I don't know why they're considered junk, but they are. Check them out. Check out the junk sections. Just be aware that if you buy electrical items, they're not guaranteed to work. The people at the till will tell you that. And if you don't understand Japanese, when you pass them the thing and they say some stuff, that's probably what they're saying. They're probably saying, hey, this hasn't been tested, you know, we're not liable for it. Now you know the types of stores, there's a few other things that you need to know before you make your adventure, is to get an IC card. Now, on the east side of Japan, the Suica card is widely accepted. So if you're in Tokyo, or if you're, you know, or Osaka, those places tend to work with the IC card. If you go further afield, if you go to Nagano, or if you go up into Hokkaido like I did, or Sendai, your card isn't going to work there. But if you're in Tokyo and the sort of close surrounding area, you should definitely get yourself an IC card, because those IC cards will save you so much time and hassle. You just tap it to go into the train station and get on your trains, etc. You top it up like you would a you know, a Monzo card or an Oyster card if you live in England and you use the London Underground. You just top it up at either a 7-Eleven or actually at the train stations. You just put on how much money you're willing to spend, and there you go, you're sorted. Now, the important thing about the Suica card, and the reason why this is even more relevant if you want to be a good hard-off treasure hunter, is that those cards actually let you use the bus services as well. That leads nicely onto part 3, which is you are not alone and you need to plan accordingly. And what that really means is there are many, many, many other tourists and locals also looking for good deals at hard-offs and book-offs. So this means like places like Akihabara, which has got a hard-off, it's going to get hammered every single day by tourists, and your chance of finding like good gems and good items goes down quite significantly when you think about how many tourists are going in there, and not just tourists as well, locals too, and rinsing those goods essentially. So you need to plan accordingly. And this means like, so for me, I was incredibly lucky, and I completely accept that I was very lucky. I came back into Japan just as soon as their lockdown ended, which meant that those shops had, you know, 2 years sat there dormant, unpicked by tourists. So that's why I went on a rampage and hit hard-offs across the entire country, and book-offs across the entire country, and hobby-offs across the entire country. And I'm glad I did. I got that opportunity, but I know it's not the same for everybody else. And as I was coming towards the end of this big treasure hunt, that's when I started to see other tourists, other adventurers, retro adventurers, I'm going to call them, searching for good deals and good items too. And there's nothing wrong with that. If there's a high amount of people now doing what you want to do, and there's a lot of people, investors as well, who want to go in, they want to get certain items, they want to take them back to the US or to the UK, and they want to flip those items for more money. They're doing that too. So you've got a lot of competition. So how do you beat the competition and get the good rare items and the good items from all these hard-offs and book-offs and etc.? Like I say, I met up with James from Back a Binge, and we went to Japan's first car boot of the year when it happened back in, I can't remember what month it was now, but it must have been before December, so probably November or something. And there were people even there doing the same thing. So, you know, it's not, I thought that was really out of the box thinking, but I guess it's not that out of the box really when you think about it. So you need to think, what can you do to get the edge on these people? And the answer is quite simple. The answer is you need to look at all the different walls of resistance that someone has to meet before they find a book-off or a hard-off or a hobby-off. How hard is it to get to the location? The harder it is to get to the location, the more likely that location is really good. The more likely. And the reason that is simply because if it's hard to get to, less people are going to try to get to it. So I was always looking for places out of the way or awkward to get to. Maybe they weren't just a train ride. Maybe they were a train ride and an hour walk. Or maybe they were a train ride, a bus, and an hour walk. It's worth it. It's worth it because why would, if you've got a limited amount of time to come to Japan and you want to do this, would you rather hit 3 to 4 places in your 1 to 2 week trip, right? 3 to 4 places that are really good or potentially really good, and they give you the items that you want or good deals that you're looking for? Or would you rather go to 5 or 6 really easy to get to locations and basically be having to fight over scraps? Because that's the reality. That's the reality if you go out to do that. So yeah, look for the out of the way places. Look for the places that are more of a hassle to get to. And the easiest way to do that, and this brings me on to the next point, is that Google Maps is, for the most part, your friend. So Google Maps is the way you want to be searching for hard-offs, book-offs. You just type in Google Maps, hard-off or book-off, and you'll see where they are. And then you can click on them and you can plan the route accordingly, and it will tell you how hard it is to get to from where you are. And the more hard that is to get to, or the more awkward. So maybe you look at it and you go, oh, well, this one's 1 hour train and this one is just 1 hour walk. They're the same. It's like, no, less people are willing to walk for an hour to get to a place than they are to just get on a train and ride it for an hour. So I would pick the walking one out of the two. And it's just thinking like that and thinking about the location of where you are. So as I went further afield in the country and was in, up in the north in Sendai or Hokkaido, it was a case of, is there a population to support enough items for that to be a good location? Because when you get really rural, that's when it gets more risky. There was one time that we took 2 trains and then we walked for like an hour and a half in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere. I've got footage I'll probably put up on the screen right now. And the book off at the end of it was actually really bad. And there have definitely been times where I've walked for a really long time or taken multiple trains or ended up in the middle of the night in -17 up in the north of Tokyo, north of Japan in the snow, and thinking, God, this better be a good place. And it turns out to be a dud because the location didn't have a lot of people. And the longer that you do this and the longer you start to amass those items that you want, the list of what's potential for you to pull becomes smaller. So it gets harder the longer you do it. But yeah, I think like you just need to use Google Maps. You need to plan what you're going to do, plan your route. Oh, and make sure, please make sure to, if you're somewhere more rural, make sure to check where Google Maps is taking you and make sure it's safe. And it seems like such a strange thing to say because Japan's a really, really safe country. But there was a time when I was in Sendai, or near Sendai, and I went really far out of the way. And I arrived at this station. It was getting dark at this point, and by the time I came out of the station, it was essentially nighttime. And I knew that I had an hour-odd walk, according to Google Maps, to get to this location. And then I thought, this is a strange route it's taking me. I'm gonna switch to layers mode so I can see the satellite topography. And then that's when I realized that 30 minutes of this walk was through dense woods. Now, you might think, so just walk through the woods, not a problem. And I did start to do that. But it's at that point where I saw my first beware of bears sign. And then I carried on walking and I thought, well, the chance of me seeing a bear is so slim. I know it's dark. I know I'm alone. Well, I'm with my partner at the time, but I know that we're alone and there's no people nearby for a while, but maybe it'll be okay. And I walked a bit more and I walked a bit more and I saw another sign. And I thought, oh, well, it's a bit spooky, isn't it? And I walked a bit more and there was another sign. I'm like, this is my 3rd or 4th warning sign about bears. That's a bit strange. And at this point, that's when the road ended and goes into the woods and it's just pitch black. And I can hear something massive moving through the foliage up ahead. Yeah, we just turned around and we left. It could have been something like I don't know if Japan has mooses or something big like that. It could have been a deer. They have deers. But I wasn't going to take that risk. And I think like you have to have a little bit of common sense when you're doing this too. So because some of these locations, especially hard-offs, they're not just nestled in the middle of cities or anything. Hard-offs tend to be out of the way. They tend to be along a dual carriageway or a big main road to take you, so you can drive in and visit them, especially the bigger ones. And as a result, they are a bit more difficult to get to on foot. So plan for that, that's all. So Google Maps is your friend. You want to go onto Google Maps, you want to look up the hard-offs near you or book-offs near you or hobby-offs near you or whatever it is that you're into. And then you want to plan accordingly and then you want to make sure that it's safe and then take your route and walk it or whatever. This brings me on to the next tip. And the next tip is, if you're a massive idiot like me and you buy way too much, and I bought too much, 6 months there, and I think only 2 months in, I had bought more than I could physically fly back to Thailand and then back to the UK. So the next thing is that you can post your items from Japan back to your home country. Now, the rules for this will be different based on country. So for the UK, any goods that I send back that are worth more than £35 in total, like if the box contents is worth more than £35, I'd have to pay VAT on that. So I didn't really want to do that. So I made sure to fill my box full of really cheap but bulky items that I didn't want to carry around with me anymore. And that's the route that I took. It's a massive hassle to send your first item via Japanese post, especially if you've got, I have limited Japanese. I don't speak much Japanese. If you have no Japanese, it's probably just as difficult. You would want to do an online, there's like an online website that you want to use. And with that website, you can put in the items, and then you basically get a list, and you go into the post office and you scan a code, and then they go through the items and they make sure that there's no, oh, you can't send batteries, by the way. Don't try and send battery banks or anything silly like that. As long as there's no batteries, that's like the big thing they're really after. As long as there's no batteries, you can send things via shipping. And the first time really sucked. It took us a while to do it, but there's probably good YouTube videos out there on the whole process, and I would urge you to check them out, because sending items back can be liberating. I've sent back 10 or more parcels to the UK, and that's not including the, when I left Japan, I left with 2 100-litre massive luggage cases, 2 36-litre cases, my 110-litre backpack, which even was partially filled with items. So there was a lot of stuff. And that probably nicely leads me on to the next point, which is speedy movement. And by speedy movement, I just mean I had all these items and I had all this luggage. How was I getting across the country without suffering a hernia carrying all those bags? And the simple answer is there's a company called Yamato Transport, and you can get your luggage transferred from your hotel or from a local convenience store like a 7-Eleven to your next destination. So every time I moved from one hotel to the next place, I would get Yamato Transport to take the biggest bags and take them to my hotel. So when I arrived, they're already there. And it's really not that expensive. I mean, it is over time if you're doing it for lots and lots of hotels, but a short stay, and if you're moving around the country a bit, it's definitely worth it if you don't want to lug your luggage around. And that brings me sort of segued into another point, which is if you use the Shinkansen and you book in advance, which you should, by the way, you can get oversized baggage seats. And that's basically just seats at the back of each train carriage that has a space behind the seats for you to put your oversized luggage in. And this is great because this meant that I didn't have to send all 4 of my big luggages off with Yamato Transport. I would just send off, a big luggage, the 2 big luggages, and I would carry my backpack on my back and wheel the little small luggage cases, which was far more easy to do. I mean, I could have spent more money and I could have sent those things on, but I was there for 6 months. That would have been very expensive very quickly if I'd have sent 4 luggage to the different hotel each time. But it's a really good tip if you're traveling around and you have too much stuff and you really want to see a lot of the country. And I think that's kind of an important thing here, is that the reason I got hooked onto to go into HARDOFFs, BOOKOFFs, etc. was simply not just because I really love hunting for retro products and just products in general, but it was actually a really good way to see rural Japan. And there's a lot of fun memories I have of walking really remote places that I've never seen tourists. On the adventure to the next location. And I'm walking through these, these little housing areas and fields and farms, and it was a really nice, authentic way to sort of view the country. And I actually really recommend it for that too. Seeing parts of the country that aren't just, the tourist footnotes. I definitely went to some of those, but I would say that the most enjoyment I got out of the Japan trip was actually being a part of the day-to-day life for the average individual. You have to know where you want to visit first. So if you're, arriving at Tokyo or whatever, and you're looking to go to HARDOFFs, you should pre-plan the ones that you want to go to. So you pre-plan where you want to go to. You give yourself the means to get there via an IC card or any kind of their transport cards. And once you've given yourself a way to get there and you know where you're going to go, the next thing is going there, right? And knowing which ones to go to. And then once you've gone to them, that's kind of it. You've worked out, I want to go to these HARDOFFs or these BOOKOFFs. I've got my IC card to get there. Google Maps is telling me the way to go and how to get there, and then you just go off and you go do it. And a little bonus tip here is that there's places like, they're called family restaurants in Japan, which are basically restaurants designed for, families to go to, and can be a little bit louder than a normal place, which is really cool. And they are things like Cafe Gusto, Caesarea, Jolly Pasta, Kodama's Coffee, all those sort of places. They're really, really good places to get cheap, cooked meals. And they happen to also be often around HARDOFFs and those industrial estate areas. So when you're looking for your HARDOFF and stuff, maybe consider what places there are to eat nearby, and that will also, save you time and save you money and let you adventure more, which is the whole point of it, right? You want to adventure, you want to get those items and explore the country. I think it's worth mentioning that because I touched on it earlier, that there are places like Trader and there's Trader, there's Super Potato, and there's even the very famous Beep in Akihabara. These are all places that also specialize in retro games and retro hardware. And they are often called expensive and overpriced, etc., etc., etc. And I don't actually think that's fair. I think that while they are on the higher price range, you're going to find items there that you just can't find in the rest of Japan, either because of the rarity or just because of the condition. So somewhere like Super Potato may be expensive, but everything you get that comes in a box is going to be in a mint condition box. It's going to have its manuals. It's going to have everything in it. You're not going to have to worry about that. Whereas with HARDOFFs, BOOKOFFs and stuff, you're going to find things that don't have manuals. You're going to find things that have damage to the box, and they tend to have a little sticker on them to tell you what's wrong. And if you see a sticker on an item that you want, my suggestion is to open up Google Lens, point your camera at it, and click translate, and it will roughly translate what that says. And it's usually something like damage to box or missing manual or whatever, and that will help you make a more informed decision on the item that you're about to purchase or thinking of purchasing. Now, if you're a collector and you really want pristine goods, you should go to those places. You absolutely should go to those places because they are going to have the best quality goods. That's just a fact. Yeah, you're going to have to pay for that, but as you should, right? A value of an item is a value of an item, and those items are of high value if they're in good condition and boxed, etc. So I think for certain people, if you're only after one or two things and you want it in really good condition and you're willing to pay for that, for what it's worth, then you should check those out too. That would save you a lot of time and effort. In fact, even though I hardly ever go to those places because I don't like to pay a lot of money for my items, I did buy two things. I bought one thing from a trader and I bought one thing from a Super Potato. Now, the thing that I bought from Super Potato, I'm not going to reveal because that's going to be in an up-and-coming video, and it's a big video. But the thing that I bought from Trader, I can show you right now. I've got it actually at hand. And that was a Game Boy Advance game that I had been looking for when I'd been traveling for these 6 months. And it is called Combat Chrono Q Advanced Daikansen, and it's a tank game. Now, the reason I wanted this from Trader was that it was the only one I've seen that came with the toy tank inside. See this little toy tank? That's my NVIDIA broadcast is ruining everything. But yeah, so I really wanted that item. Now, I saw 2 more of these in my entire 6 months in Japan, and hundreds of HARDOFFs across the entire country. I saw 2 of these, and both of them were missing the tank. But you see, the tank is in this one, and it was a collection item that I wanted, so I didn't manage to find it luckily in a store. I didn't get lucky with that one, so I paid the price for it, and that's fine. It wasn't super expensive, but I paid what I was willing to pay for an item that I could only find there. And I think that's kind of telling to the quality of Super Potato, Trader, Beep, etc. They're all very good places. They just fit a different market, and they're all within central Tokyo, Akihabara area. So you can just visit those. They don't get as hammered because they're expensive. So so you will find things there that you want. And speaking about things that I bought from Japan, I would love to show you all the stuff that we got. But that's actually going to be saved for when I get back to England and set up the studio. That's right, you heard correctly, a studio. Yes, things are going up with this channel. So there's a lot on the horizon, and for now, I'm currently in Thailand, and I'm here for a little while longer. But then when I go back to England, that's when things are going to speed up and things are going to change, and this 2 years of traveling around the world is going to finally end, which is crazy. But there are some things that I can tell you that are coming up, and that is that I will be Twitch streaming at pixelportable. There will be a proper studio set when I get back to the UK, and the quality of these videos should hopefully improve drastically. There's going to be some collabs, and I'm excited for that too, because I think, you know, it's nice to bounce ideas and content off other people. And I think that you're really going to love the direction in which the future content is planned. So if you want to join me for the ride, feel free to subscribe and share with your friends. And in the meantime, why not check out one of these videos? Yeah. See you soon. Thanks for watching.